Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out Touch My Katamari. It's bizarre, I only just recently played Katamari Damacy and now I'm playing this. I actually bought this years ago, but never actually got around to it, because that seems to be the way I'm going with everything that I buy on Vita these days. I own all the launch library games and yet I haven't even played half of them, but like whatever. So let's just go straight on into the game. Go from a previous save. Yeah, you gave me one candy. That's fantastic. So, this is the menu. It's a little bit odd. It's bloody Katamari, of course it's odd, but it's still just that little bit strange of a menu, having to run up and down the king's, I don't even know what the fuck these are, and talk to people in order to access the game's levels, or you can go to the left and have a look at everything else. So, there isn't that much to see in this game, mainly because it's actually pretty short and doesn't have that much worth really going into. So, I mean, obviously the gameplay is there, and we'll be getting to that, but the other stuff outside it is not great. We'll get to that. So, we can go to the king's garb and the prince's garb, and we can dress them up, but I don't actually have anything... I don't think I actually have any extra things yet, which is unfortunate. I'm not entirely sure how you get them either. I admit I haven't been playing for long, so if we go to a blank part on the menu, we can press X and see our stats, and we can see that I've been playing for 36 minutes. I know that's not much, but I have my reasons and I'll get to them. So we can come down here and we can see that I haven't unlocked much of anything. I'm really not sure how. I'm guessing that maybe you have to beat the entire game before it'll let you do stuff like actually buy clothes. Oh look, we finally can buy clothes. Okay, so give me some clothes. 140 candy for dandy clothes. What about capes? Alright, give me a cape for 60 candy. What else have you got? Glasses, why not? Alright, so if we go up to the... Well, is this for the king or the prince? I have no idea. We'll see if it's for the king. Yep, it's for the king. So you can take your fancy new monocle and your bulge. And now we can see the monocle. Okay, that makes sense. So I'm almost out of candy now, that's great. Okay, so you can talk to him. You can also talk to a couple of other people, including the Buddy Plaza, which I'm not going to show you because that relies on Nia, and Nia is dead, unfortunately. Yes, we can talk to the music clerk to buy the soundtrack in the game as well. But of course, it's all expensive. And we can also take a look at our curio collection. These are items that you find in each level. And if you find all of them, well, it counts for a trophy. So, we got the home plate. We have snorkel and goggles, a parrot, and a dead goldfish in a bag. Well, no, it's not dead. It just looks like it is, because it's small enough that you can barely tell. You can find 10 curios on each level, I believe. Kind of hard to find, but not that big a deal. Now, there is one more thing I haven't looked at on this side yet, because it's honestly the most infuriating thing I've seen on a game on a Vita.
I'm the CEO.
Well, it's not the High Rollers Club, actually. It's something else. But for some reason I need to get more candies in order to actually level up on that. I don't know what the deal is with that. But if we come back over here, the guy's over here actually. He is... Where is he? There he is. Just need to try and make sure that I don't accidentally go over someone else. So this is the hidden Katamari fan. So, he requires you to pay Fandom RC. You can see in the top left there that I've only got one after playing for half an hour. There are only 9 levels in the base game. Not 9, sorry, 13. 13. 9 is the amount of DLC levels. So I've played through 7 of the game's 13 levels and I only have one Fandom RC. If you want to buy these DLC levels, you need 10 apiece. And goddamn is it going to take you a while to get 90. Because from what I've read on the internet, there is a 20% chance maybe that you'll get a Fandom RC in a level. And I've only seen one in 7 levels. You want to know how you get more Fandom RC? Other than that, you buy them. I'm positive there's a way you used to be able to actually, like, buy them. Is it the...
Welcome.
Yeah, store clerk. So, we can either give away our Fandom RC for candy tickets, which we do not want to do, or we can go hop on the PlayStation Store. So the first thing, the download requests are going to be free, right? Because they are free. They start out free, and they are technically free. But unless you want to go grinding for literally hours for Fandom RC, you have to buy them. I don't even know why they bother to only sell you one. Because you need at least 10 in order to actually unlock a DLC level. So, even if you want to buy all the DLC levels outright, you're basically going to have to pay in the realm of, let's see, 24 plus 2, that's 26. $29.49. If you want to buy all the DLC levels in this game without grinding for Fandom RC, that's $30. That's almost as much as the game cost when it came out. And considering that the game only lasts for a couple of hours if you don't endlessly grind levels over and over again, yeah, that's just kind of disgusting. That is legitimately one of the worst DLC ideas I have ever seen. It's worse than some mobile games I've played, and that is legitimately impressive. With that being said, let's go and actually play one of the in-game levels. But honestly, it's not going to be that great from here on in because that DLC policy has just absolutely killed the game for me. Like, what the fuck, guys? I will give it one piece of credit though. It looks and sounds like a Katamari game. It absolutely does meet that visual standard. It does a really good job of it. It absolutely looks like the first Katamari game. Like, it absolutely looks like the only Katamari game I've played, but good lord. It hits the Katamari theme pretty much dead on. Today you'll be gathering up lots of workers. Workers aren't always people. Cars and such can be used for work as well. And there are lots of those, so think outside the box. You'll never make manager with that attitude. So show us many examples. So we have 10 minutes to get 8 meters. So if you've never played Katamari before, it is an absolutely bizarre concept. The idea is that you go around rolling things up in your Katamari, and the idea is that you simply need to make your Katamari as big as humanly possible. You do this by rolling up objects. The more objects you roll up, the bigger you get, and once you get bigger, you are able to roll up bigger and bigger objects. It is an incredibly simple gameplay formula, and when the levels are designed properly, it is the most satisfying thing I've played in video games in a long time. It's mainly because they do such a good job with the controls as well. You can use you can use 3 different sets of controls, but we'll get to the 3rd set shortly. But you can use 2 different sets of controls, standard or classic. Classic requires you to move the 2 analog sticks forward and backward at the same time, or to turn them in different directions in order to turn. You do also have some extra abilities you can use, like pressing the L button to turn around quickly, pressing the R button to jump, and moving both sticks inward twice in order to quick turn, or outward twice in order to do a fast speed dash. With that being said, I'm using the standard controls, which let you just roll the ball with the left stick and move the camera with the right stick. And still, both work fine. There's nothing wrong with using one or the other if you want to. I'm just using the regular controls because it's easier and not the classic ones. There is also a new mechanic that is new to this version of Katamari, and that is being able to stretch out your Katamari and also shrink it. So if you use the touchscreen or the rear touchpad, both work. I'm only using the one, which is the touchscreen, because anyone who wants to do anything with any kind of precision with the rear touchpad is a flippin' nut. Nevertheless, if you use the touchscreen in a pinching or expanding motion, like zooming in and zooming out on your smartphone, it will change the shape of your Katamari to either a flat POS like this or a tall POS. There are pretty much no uses for being tall because you want to be able to get as much as possible. There are a couple of like individual places that you can go, and there are a couple of like really small individual places you can go while you're tall, but you really do not need to worry about going tall very often. You either want to be a round ball or you want to be just completely flat. That is the simple explanation, because there is no reason why you don't want to be picking up as much as humanly possible. So you basically just want to be, flat or round as much as possible, just because it gives you more room to pick stuff up. There are, of course, ways to lose your parts of your Katamari. If you run into anything that's moving in a particularly hostile fashion, you will... If you run into anything that's moving in a particularly hostile fashion, you will lose parts of your Katamari. You can also lose it by running into something particularly hard. But, well, once you know, like, what consists of particularly hostile objects or actions, you'll be more or less fine. So the basic gameplay just continues on like this. You get bigger, and you do get those infinitely satisfying little blurred transitions that help cover up the fact that you're getting bigger. And you just go on and try and get as big as humanly possible. Or should I say catamarically possible, but you get the general idea. It works really well. It still works really well. This worked great in Katamari Damacy Reroll. This probably continues to work great because there's a reason people love this series. Yeah, it works. It absolutely does work. And, well, the Vita version of the gameplay itself is still pretty well implemented. Unfortunately, there does appear to be a fair bit of performance issues. The game was running absolutely fine earlier, but it appears that these larger levels are causing it to have a little bit of an issue. Not much, but certainly a fair bit. I need to be a little bit bigger before I can start truly sucking up humans. It is still infinitely satisfying to be able to just get slowly but surely bigger and have things like people that knock you out of the way like that get out of your way because they know damn well you're going to suck them up if you so much as look at them funny. And it is a brilliant feeling to be able to do that. Ouch. Nope, I can't get bikes yet. Need to be at least 3 meters before I can access the next area, so there must be a few more things I can get in order to get bigger. Oh, that's gonna suck. Let's try and avoid him. The game is also warning me that there are enemies nearby that can and will take me out if I let them. Let's just get all these laptops, shall we? Well, they've been alerted, which means that I am probably capable of sucking them up now. So let's go and suck up some humans. There we go. I do have a couple of problems with the way this game has been designed, though, and it's mainly in the levels. Now, I have very recently, as in, like, just a couple of months ago, played the original Katamari Damacy, right? In the form of reroll. So I do actually remember a lot of those original levels. And if I'm being honest, the levels in Touch My Katamari feel like they were prototypes for the levels that showed up in Katamari Damacy. They aren't particularly original. They aren't exactly original or like any sort of really unique spins on the idea for the most part. It seems to be the same basic setup. Just more or less going from just a house to a backyard to a town, and I imagine that I will eventually start taking over like an entire village at some point. You know the drill with these sorts of games if you've played them before. And that is kind of disappointing. I was hoping for a little bit more original level design. But I know, I guess the Katamari formula has been well set in stone in this point, considering there's been like 5 games in the series, but I just thought I would point that out. If you're coming for this looking for a particularly original Katamari experience, you're probably not going to get it. I'm just trying to work my way back out here. There we go. If you're looking for a particularly original Katamari experience, I don't think you're going to get it from this game. It just seems to be particularly... what's the word I'm looking for? It just seems to be particularly unimaginative. And the same can be said about the story. It feels like there is a story going on. It is about this random weeby dude who basically needs to leave his house more often. I know that sounds like a weird story, but that's exactly what it is. It does have the same flair and presentation that Katamari usually does. It's just... It seems like such a boring subject, honestly. Like, he has exactly the same set of generic weeb problems that you would expect any generic weeb trying to get out of a... oh my. It has all the generic weeb problems that you would expect a generic weeb to have, like barely being able to resist doing a meet and greet instead of picking up a study guide, not being able to resist buying that same meet and greet's new album, just general things like that, you know, just weeb stuff like that. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it still feels really unimaginative. It's not the... I mean, how do you follow up on a story like Katamari Damacy? I mean, that is a question that I'm willing to say that I have no answer to. How do you follow up on the story literally being, we accidentally took all the stars out of the sky, we need you to fix it? I have no idea how you're supposed to pull that one off. And I feel sorry for the poor bastards who needed to try, but admittedly it feels like they're not really putting in their best effort here. I mean, the story is more or less, there is a little bit of the story where it's more or less the king is just more or less losing his good public image. He's appearing like a lazy bastard and all that sort of stuff. But still, that's kind of the whole thing. There doesn't seem to be much interesting in the way of the story. Which is unfortunate. Alright, so we've hit the target. And this is honestly the only level I've actually had trouble being on target so far with. A little bizarre, but yeah, the levels in this game are actually surprisingly easy in comparison. Like, I'm not even particularly trying, I'm just playing this game to have fun and have a good time, but yeah, they aren't exactly making it particularly hard this time around, I've gotta say. Also, yes, it is still ridiculous. Which I appreciate. Yeah, there we go. That's honestly the longest level in the game so far. Another problem with this game is that some of the levels are really short. Like, impressively short. The first level that you play is like 3 minutes. And it goes by like a snap of the fingers. Some of the side levels too can be over, like... Some of the levels can be over in the snap of the fingers. Like, one of the levels is literally, once you pick up 50 items, the game's over. It can be bizarre. Wow, that looks way more pixelated blown up on the monitor than it does on the Vita screen. So apparently I didn't do too well, but I managed to get a lot of workers. Alright, so here's how the candies work in this game. Sometimes you get a candy ticket, but it's rare. I've only gotten like 2 or 3 since I started the game, and you start out with a couple. And if you sweet talk someone, you can add a candy ticket, and you can add up to 3, and it'll multiply your candy total. So if I give him 2, it'll actually give me 144, 288. 288 candies, which I can then use to buy stuff. Unfortunately, I've heard that some of the items in this game, like the really top-end stuff, is somewhere in the realm of 14,000 candies.
I'm a lean, mean, studying machine. Here I go. The study guide will be mine. Oh yes. Bookshelves? What bookshelves? Leave bogey, 6 o'clock. Sorry, ladies, not today. Yeah! This is for you, king of all cosmos. Victory is mine!
You're so sexy!
Bonus round! I got the babe too! Book learning and companionship! I've got it all!
That was bizarre. Moving on then, but let's go and have a little bit look around. So, cows and bears. Roll up the biggest cow or bear. That's a little bizarre. And what's your job? Clean up special. Roll up everything as fast as you can. Fair enough. And muscle man. 7 minutes. Alright, let's go and actually play one of those special stages. I think we'll go for the time attack one. There are also a couple of special modes that you can unlock. But according to the review I read online, all they do is either take away the time limit or make you twice as fast. So they don't actually change anything about the gameplay at all. which is incredibly bizarre. Roll up everything, sure. Let's see how fast we can get this done. This will be an example of how the smaller side of Katamari works, where you start out small and you get big. So it still definitely has that weird and wacky sense of humor that Katamari is known for. But when you put it in the context of some weird, nerdy, geeky dude going through the most generic story possible, it just doesn't seem to have that much in the way of particularly interesting development. And therefore it's quite boring. Now, admittedly, the original... Are those Hue cards? Yeah, those are Hue cards. Admittedly, the original story was a bit weird like that too, but at the same time, the idea of all the stars disappearing from the sky and only certain people being able to notice the king was actually kind of interesting. In this case, though, it just seems surprisingly dull. And I couldn't tell you what's so specifically dull about it to save my life. Oh yeah, by the way you know if there's a Katamari on the level, which is, as far as I'm aware, the only way you can actually get them without buying them, is if the king says at the beginning of the level that there's going to be one in there. But he sure hasn't said that. God, I feel bad for the people who wanted to play this entire game without paying double for it. At least the levels get slightly longer at the end to compensate, but even then, imagine playing, like... Consider this, I've only found one Katamari, and it was on the first level I've played, and I've played like 9 levels now, right? Imagine having to play 10 levels from a stack of 13 over and over again before you get your next Katamari. Imagine having to do that. That would be absolutely infuriating. And as far as I can, like, from the review I read that very thoroughly laid out all the mechanics, the 9 levels that are part of the downloads aren't actually really worth playing, at least not for the amount of work you have to put in order to actually get them. Two minutes 28 is worth 4 stars. That's actually alright. 18 candies. And apparently I got all the curios, but then again I suppose I had to. Oh, they're just worth candies. Okay. And he gives me a candy ticket just because he feels like it. But frankly, I don't plan on coming back and playing this anymore because there is no damn way I'm going to do all that grinding in order to unlock all those extra DLC levels. Not a chance. Yeah, we're done here. We'll go play one more level. We could... 7 minutes? No, we'll go play something on a smaller scale to demonstrate better. That's the tutorial level. Yeah, sure. We'll do this one. So overall, I don't hate the gameplay of Katamari, I just hate everything around it. I hate the fact that it only has 13 levels, some of which that you can finish in a ridiculously short amount of time. I hate the fact that its DLC is one of the most hostile things I have seen on a video game console in a long time, literally being worse than some mobile games I've played. I hate the fact that this game is probably the reason why we haven't seen another Katamari game in a while. Like, I'm pretty sure between this and Reroll, this was the only reason there wasn't another Katamari game in like 6 years. And that is just inherently disappointing. I am actually kind of amazed. And disappointed, very disappointed. I imagine that the first thing someone is going to do... Well, I thought that the first thing that someone would have done with this game was maybe come up with like a cheat for a modded Vita that would immediately unlock all the DLC levels. I imagine that would be the first thing that they would do. I've been wrong before, of course, but... Maybe I can pick these up now. Nope. I can definitely pick up the Twin Pops, though. And the levels are just... They aren't poor levels, and they do still convey that awesome sense of slowly growing in scale that Katamari is known for, but it just doesn't seem to be as thoroughly creative about it as the only other Katamari game I've played, which is Damacy Reroll, which was literally the first game in the series. So I just can't help but wonder what happened here. What convinced him to go with such a oddball, ridiculous DLC policy? What convinced them to make the levels this short? What convinced them to go with the story that literally every weeb ever has ever heard? And trust me, if there's any one group playing Katamari Damacy, it is most likely the weebs. Like, you cannot convince me that the weebs are not in some way responsible for the... Really? Come on, let me up there. Jesus. You can't convince me that it's not mostly weebs playing Katamari. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just saying this game is so thoroughly Japanese that I find it really hard to believe that most of the mainstream gaming population would be interested in something as weird, wacky, and ridiculous as this. Sorry, I'm just getting fenced by a damn bird. Oh, time for strike. There you go. And now we have... Come on. Can I get it? Thank you. And now we've got 90 seconds to roll up the rest of the area. So I'm not entirely sure what I need to actually roll up at this point, get bigger, because I've already got most of it. That's a little annoying. A little bit of a platforming challenge there. That's interesting. I admit I'm not too good at Katamari. It's not something I play very often, so I don't have the opportunity to get very good at it, but... Yes. Probably should be boosting around a lot more than I actually am. The only way I can recommend you pick up a copy of Touch My Katamari is if they make all the DLC free without needing to grind for it, because goddamn, you could finish this game real quick, and the amount of grind that you would have to do to unlock everything would be ridiculous. So they need to at least get rid of some of it before it's worth the time. But if they don't do anything about that ridiculous DLC policy, I can't recommend it. It's too short. It's not as original as the original Katamari. It seems to be resting on the game's laurels without really doing anything interesting with it. And it's just... It's just not as good as, like, the original game. So, there you go. Really disappointed to be saying that, but that means I'm probably going to have to go and check out the other Katamari games at this point. There was another one on PS2 after the original DMRC, and then there was one on PS3, if I remember correctly. Not sure, but there you go. This has been Blue Maxima, and I will see you all next time.